Hi guys, welcome back. And now in this video, I just want to basically do the home component, which is gonna hold everything. And remember, in the routing module, that will be the first component here, or not the first component, but the dashboard, basically. Um, and so basically, that's the path that we're going to be creating, or the component that we're going to be working on. And basically, let me go to the HTML. Let me grab it first. Home. Grab this and that in. Let me do that for the CSS as well. It just simply is a couple of things here for some positioning and stuff. And put that in there. So actually, we don't need the footer there anymore, actually, because I remember that we put it inside of the app component HTML file here. So we don't need to put the footer class in there. And we can get rid of the footer here as well. And so basically, this HTML just has the app nav bar. We catch another event, but that's basically um, the the output that we emitted from app navbar in the previous video, and then it takes in the same parameters. Now we have a div here, and now this is the key of this component pretty much. And so like basically, if the user's logged in, we want to render the post grid, which will show the user's post. And then if they're not, meaning else authenticate, we name this ng template authenticate, the ID of it, the Angular ID at least. And then basically we render this app off component here, which will basically show a login and register form. And then you can see in both we also catch different things. We catch like the variable here, and then we use that to basically catch the register, and then we pass in the data, and then we basically handle it accordingly. Which basically we just if it's successful, we just basically set the app user ID, the token, and everything like that. And then basically we set user logged in and true to where now this won't be rendered anymore after we catch this, and now this will be rendered instead of the post grid. So basically that's what this is. And so and it's wrapped in a single div as well. You want to make sure you do that. It doesn't have to be a div, but you just want to have it in a single tag. So basically inside of here, and I'm gonna leave this open just so that we can look back and forth at it. And so in here, this is where I want to set everything up. So we want to bring in a few variables here. So there'll be user logged in, type boolean, user posts, which we're going to get when we retrieve them from the service, which I'll talk about in a minute. Service, because the service basically deals with fetch requests to the server. So that's how I remember it, service, server. And so this is of type post, a post array, which I didn't create yet. And actually, I guess I'll do that first. And so inside of your app folder, you want to create something called models. So right click, new folder, models. And this is that model view controller setup that I talked about earlier. And so in here, we just want to export one single class, and that's going to be just called posts, not TS, not JS. And so basically inside of here, I'm going to name it posts. And we just want to basically export a few members. And so let me just grab that really quickly. I forgot what I named everything. So basically it's an ID, and we want to set it to type number. Like that. We want to do the title of the post, which will be a string. Then we want to do the body of the post, which will be a string as well. And then we want to do the updated at, which will basically be of type date, which we can do like that. And then created at, which will also be of type date. And that's our entire model there. So we just have all of our fields in there, and that's what we're sending as JSON to the backend, to where the backend is gonna do what it has to do, and then send it to MongoDB. And so basically, we have to import post as well. So we got to import post from, and then let's see where we're at, // to get out of the home folder, // to get out of the components folder. Then we want to do models and then posts like that. Oops. Okay, and so basically now you can see the error went away. And so now we have something of type post, and we just put this array syntax here because it's an array of posts that we're getting here, user post plural. And so basically, back inside of here, inside of the home TS file, I simply want to add a few more variables. So it'll be app user ID string, and it'll be equal to empty string, and then token as well. That should be it for adding the variables. And so now we just want to, we can keep this as on init because this home component will only be rendered when we hit the dashboard route. So if we're not on the dashboard, it won't be rendered. And because we're not passing in any inputs, we don't have to use on changes. So we can leave that as on init. And basically inside of the constructor, we want to bring in the activator route again. So we'll do import statement at Angular router. And then I want to do activator route, which once again is basically the route that we're coming from, or basically the route that we want to retrieve the params from. And so basically we'll set it basically equal to activator route. And so we do a route like that. So this route snapshot param map and then get, and then we want to get the ID. And we want to basically say if that's not equal to undefined. Oops. And so basically here we want to do if route.snapshot param map get, and we're doing ID again, and we want to use length is less than 2. Then we just simply, that means that the user didn't log in, and so we want to use user logged in and set that to false. And then like I said, you don't have to do that. You could just say if is greater than 2, and you can just set it to true, and then it'll automatically be false by default. And then so basically we can do else, and then user logged in to true. And then we also want to do app user ID, and we want to set it equal to route.snapshot param map get, and then the ID like that. And then we want to use token, and we want to just set that to the token param from the same route like that. And so basically now we want to retrieve the post. And this is when we would bring in a service. So basically I'll do retrieve the post. I'll just do that like that. And so basically I have to create a post service in order to do that. And so in order to do that, I want to first, let me open up the terminal, control backtick. And so basically I want to cd into the client folder, make sure you're in the client folder, and I want to use ng generate service, and then you can name it whatever you want, or you can do nggs, and then basically I want to put it in a folder called services like that, and then I basically want to call this service, post service. I think I named it post. Let me check. I do post or post service. I did post. So basically I can just call it post like that, and it'll put .service on it for me. So we let that get created, and if we go to services, you can see post.service.ts. And so basically that's like how we do that. And so we can just clear that and then control backtick to close it. And then basically this post service is what we want to bring in up here. And so we want to do import, and we want to use so basically in here we want to just do We want to get the service, so we do // to get out of the home folder. Now we have to get out of the components folder, and so then we go into services, and then post service, like that. And so remember, we don't put the MIME type of .ts or anything like that. And so in here, we just simply want to do post service like that, similar to if we're bringing in a component. And so now we can just put it in here, similar to the activator route. We can do private, and then we can do post service like that, camel case, and then we can do that. And now we just instantiated an instance of this post service. And so now here we just want to call a method called, let's see, so I called this, well, actually, I created a method called retrieve the post, and inside of there is where I actually did everything at. So right below here, I want to do retrieve the post, like that, and that just simply takes in the ID and a token. So we'll do ID token, and simply this is where we use the post service. And before we continue, let me actually finish doing this part. So we do retrieve post like that, and then we'll basically pass in the ID and a token. So it'll be app user ID and then token, like that. And that's it for the on G, in on G init, ng on init. And so now back in retrieve the post, this is where we actually call the service. And so we want to use post service dot, and then whatever we named the method inside of the post service, I named it retrieve post, and I'm going to make the post service in a second, or the post service methods. And so that'd be ID and token. And then we just simply, it returns observable, which is similar to a promise. And the observable is from RxJS. And what the observable does is it allows us to subscribe to it and make it asynchronous until like it gets the data. And so what we do is instead of .then, we use .subscribe. That it's just doing that because we didn't make the method yet. And when we subscribe, it returns whatever we want it to, and we'll do that in the service. I just named it response, and we just do a callback with it. And so basically inside of here, if response, and then because we're doing JSON, we're returning JSON, we want to use associative array syntax, or response.post. We want to do basically if it's not undefined, we want to basically do user post, and we want to do is equal to JSON.parse, and then response, and then post. And that'll basically parse it from a string back into the actual object to set it to the array of post, which is what we should be getting there. And so now, before I do these other methods, I want to simply create the service just to show you like what is actually happening there. And so I have the service here. And let me just open this up on my other computer. Open it up. Alright. So inside of here, we just simply want to bring in a few things. And remember, inside of the app module, we brought in that HTTP client module. And that's basically, we pass it in here, and that's basically what we're using here for this. So inside of post service, I just closed it. So inside of here, we just want to bring that in. So we want to import. Oops. And so it'll be something called HTTP client, which is the client for it, and then HTTP headers, which allows us to send headers with our request, and that'll be from, sorry about that, that'll be from, and then that'll be at angular / common / HTTP. And while we're here, we also want to import our observable from RxJS. which is similar to a promise. And that RX basically stands for reactive JS. That's basically, they basically call it RxJS, but it's reactive JS. And so basically inside of here, we want to just um, set a few variables. And these will be basically the different URL strings or endpoints that we want to be defined in our front end. So this will be retrieve post URL, and this will type string. It'll be equal to /API /post, because remember inside of our, all the way back in our index.js, remember we did a /API /post right there. And then inside of our routes, that's where we did the actual retrieve, add, delete all, and stuff like that. And that's basically what we're doing here. So we're doing /post, and then this one will simply be retrieve. And the reason why I didn't put the user ID on it is because inside of the function, I'm going to add it to the actual path inside of there. And so we want to do the same thing, and then I'm going to name this one. Let me do it. I did it for 4. So I want to do add post URL here. This one should be delete post URL. Then this one should be delete all post URL, like that. And so this will be add, this will be delete, then this will be delete all, like that. And so basically these are our routes. And so we want to also bring in something called HTTP headers, which I also brought in here. And what we want to do is we want to pass in headers. We want to create a variable called headers and set it to type HTTP headers. And then we want to set it equal to a new instantiation of it, like that. We want to pass in basically some fields like this. And so basically this JSON, so it'll be, that's why I passed in a JSON object for the headers. And this will be content type, like that. And it'll be application /JSON. And so that's all we want to do there. And inside of here, we want to actually bring in the HTTP client, like this. And that's not it, like that. And so basically the HTTP client, that'll allow us to use it with our methods. And so now we actually want to get to making the method. So I'll just make the first one that I actually had on the, that I actually did back here, of retrieving the post and then calling it. And so I called it retrieve post. And that just takes in the user ID and that token that we got from the backend when we logged in and registered. And so inside of here, I want to first create a new headers object, because some of the objects we don't want to append the token. Or wait, let me see. Oh, wait, never mind. It's not. No, we want to append the token on all these routes because they require it to be authenticated, as we have inside of our routes off our post.js file here. But basically, what I want to do here is I want to create a new headers object because I want to append a token, and since we don't have the token by default when this class is first created, when we call instantiation of it inside of here, it'll basically be impossible to get the data. So because we pass it in via a method, I have to basically create a new HTTP object. And I basically did that up here so we wouldn't have to type it out in each method. But you can do that as well. And basically, I'm going to use let. You can use const as well. And it'll be new headers. You can name it whatever you want. And then set it to a new instance of HTTP headers. And then basically, let me see, what did I do? So for this particular one, I'm not going to append on the old headers yet. I just want to simply just create one specifically for the token because we don't need to pass content type of JSON, because we're not actually sending JSON in this one. This is a GET request. So I'm going to just say X auth token, which remember is what we named it in the back end of the header that we're looking for. If I go back to, let me see, where am I at here? Where's config? Config auth. You can see we're looking for that header of X auth token. So when we call that route, or whenever we call any route that requires authentication, it runs this function. And basically it's looking instantly for that header of the token. And remember, if it's not there, it's going to return a status of 401, meaning the user is unauthorized. If it is there, then we're going to use decoded token, and we want to actually, I caught an error. This should be decoded token, not decoded. But basically, we want to set the rec.user, or the user object, and the request object. We want to set the user variable equal to that decoded token. And then we want to pass next so that we go to the next middleware. And so basically that's why we want to name this XOF token as one of the headers here, because we're sending it from the front end to the back end. And then we want to set the token to that. And so now I just simply want to return. I just put a space between that. And I want to return this HTTP GET request that we're making. We also can use post, patch, put, delete, but I'm doing post. And you have to set the type. And I'm going to set it to any, which you can do. And now you want to actually set the actual path. And so we want to use a backtick because we're going to use the template literal syntax. And so I want to basically do $, curly brace, and then it's going to be that retrieve post URL up there, like that. And then I also want to put a slash, and then I want to use another $, curly brace. And this is going to be that user ID, because remember, inside of this, not off. Inside of post, you can see that parameter of user ID is there, rec.params.user ID. And so that's what we're basically doing here. And you don't have to actually call this user ID. It doesn't have to be the same as the backend. You can name this anything you want. But basically, I just named it the same thing. And so then, and we got to pass that. We got to append that to the route, which is why I just put it up there like that, so we can append it on from the actual function. And so now we just want to return that, and that's it. And so basically here, I didn't actually pass in the headers. And so I want to also, so for the headers, I want to pass in those headers. And so in order to do this, you want to do headers like this at Jasmine. Headers like that, and you want to basically set it equal to those headers that you put in there. Because you can pass in other things besides headers as well. As you can see here, there's other things you can pass in. And so basically, in order to return this, we're getting it from this, we're returning it outside of the method, but this will work if we set this equal to the method. Because we didn't set this equal to the method and we're actually calling it from a service, we have to actually do something besides that, and that's where we actually set it to observable. You also have things called subjects, which you use to basically, similar to an observable, but for here I'm going to use observable. And you want to make sure the types match, so if you use any here, you want to use any here. If you use string here, you want to use string there. And so basically that's what we do there, which is why I brought it in from Reactive.js. And basically that's it. So that's all we have to do for this here, and you can see that the error went away here. And so let me see. So next I want to go back to the home component. And back in the HTML, we had a few catches that we had to do. So here you can see we have to catch the the ID to emit and the ID with post that we get from the auth component. And there's another one, and the logout status from the app nav bar. So we have to create those three methods, and then we'll be done with the home component. So first I want to do the check status from the app nav bar if the user's logged in or not. And this function simply just clears everything if the user clicks log out. in the nav bar. And so basically I'm going to do check status. That's what we named it in the HTML file. And then we can name the parameter whatever we want. And you can set that type as well, but you don't have to. Basically, it'll be if, ooh, wait, that's not what I wanted. If, and then value is equal to true. And basically the triple equals just means that the type has to also equal as well as the value, as well as the actual value. Double equals mean that it could be a different type, but it can still has to be the value. So triple equals is almost like, I guess you could say, more secure. And that's what usually what you see with JavaScript files nowadays. And so basically we want to set user logged in equal to false. Then we want to do app user ID and set it equal to empty string, as well as a token. And we want to set user post to empty array, like that. Just clear everything out from the client side. And that's it for this one. And so now I want to do the function which grabs the data if the user clicks the request submit button, the register submit button. Sorry. And then if the user clicks the login submit button, it'll also be a separate function for that because we're returning different things. And so this function grabs the object emitted from the user register process. User register process, like that. And so we called it catch register emit. And I'll just call this data. And remember, we called it catch register emit here with passing in the event because we want the value from there as well as with the, and this value is an object literal. So we can emit a lot of different types. This one we're emitting object literals. So basically with the data, we could just do if the value, or not the value, look at that check status. Basically, so we can just set everything to true. And so basically, we want to set the app user ID to the data dot underscore ID, which is what I'm returning. And that's what I named it on the back end. If you remember inside of the auth, config. So inside of here, when we return it, remember we're returning underscore ID. Because we create the new object, we return underscore ID, which is why in here I did underscore ID because that's what we're getting. And you'll see why when I do the auth component. And so basically we also want to set the token to data.token. And we want to do the same thing, so I'll just copy this comment here. Actually, I'll just copy this entire thing. Like that. And this function grabs the object data from the login process. Then we want to do catch login emit. And then everything is the exact same, except now we're also adding the post. And I mean, you can actually call one function and return a value of Boolean inside of the object. You can do like data is login or is true or false. And you can make this one method and do like if is login is true, you return these four, and if it's false, you just return these three. But I just put it in two separate methods, but you can do it that way as well. And basically, you want to set that to post like that. And so basically now these are two methods that we use to catch the events from the outputs from the event emitter inside of our HTML file for the auth component. And so now we're done with the home component. And so now we can close this up. And then next I'm going to get into, and the rest of the methods that I'm putting in here for this come from the PostGrid component. And so and I'll get into that in the next couple of videos. But the next video, I want to focus on the auth component. So thanks a lot for watching and see you in the next video.